Good morning, everyone. My name is Ryan Cobb. I'm the Veteran Service Officer for the town of Westford. Honor guards, can you please come to attention? At this time, Firefighter David Christiana will now sound the alarm bell, the last call. Now, will everyone please join me in a moment of silence? I'd like to call up retired firefighter Jim Klecak, who will now be reading the firefighter's prayer.
Good morning. Thank you all for being here. The firefighter's prayer. When I am called to duty, God, wherever flames may rage, give me the strength to save some life, whatever be its age. Help me embrace a little child before it's too late, or save an older person from the horror of that fate. Enable me to be alert and hear the weakest shout, and quickly and efficiently to put the fire out. I want to fill my calling, to give the best in me, to guard my every neighbor and protect his property. And if, according to your will, I have to give my life, please bless your protecting hand, my children and my wife. Amen.
Thank you. Now, Police Chief Tom McInerney will read the police officer's prayer.
Lord, I ask for courage to face and conquer my own fears, courage to take me where others will not go. I ask for strength of body to protect others, and strength of spirit to lead others. I ask for dedication to do my job, to do it well, dedication to my community, to keep it safe. Give me, Lord, concern for others who trust me, and compassion for those who need me. And please, Lord, through it all, be by my side.
Thank you. Now, Nancy Cook will be reading the poem One by Cheryl Sawyer in the memory of all that have perished on that fateful day.
As the soot and dust and ash rained down, we became one color. As we carried each other down the stairs of the burning building, we became one class. As we lit candles of waiting and hope, we became one generation. As the firefighters and police officers fought their way into the inferno, we became one gender. As we fell to our knees in prayer for strength, we became one faith. As we whispered or shouted words of encouragement, we spoke one language. As we gave blood in lines a mile long, we became one body. As we mourned together the great loss, we became one family. As we cried tears of grief and loss, we became one soul. As we retell with pride of the sacrifices of our heroes, we become one people. We are one color, one class, one generation, one gender, one faith, one language, one body, one family, one soul, one people. We are the power of one. We are the United States of America. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I would like to introduce a few speakers for some pardon words. Congresswoman Lori Trahan.
Good morning, and thank you all for being here today as we come together to observe the 19th anniversary of the 9/11 terror attacks. Like so many of you, I find it hard to believe that nearly 2 decades have passed since that tragic morning. I still remember exactly where I was the moment I heard that an airplane had crashed into the North Tower of the World Trade Center. And I remember the range of emotions that ensued over the hours, days, and weeks that followed. Today we honor the 2,966 souls that we lost that day, including 2 members of this community here in Westford, Susan McKay and James Edward Hayden, whose lives were cut short at the hands of those who sought to divide us. Little did the perpetrators of those attacks know that their actions, as horrific as they were, would have the opposite effect that they intended. As chaos engulfed areas around the World Trade Center, the Pentagon, and central Pennsylvania, America watched as thousands of heroes, firefighters, police officers, EMTs, and everyday people ran toward the devastation, toward the danger, to do everything they could to save their fellow Americans. Many of them gave up their lives, and many more suffered long-term effects from their heroic efforts so that others could live. Today we express our eternal gratitude for their sacrifices. In the weeks and months following 9/11, first responders, service members, and volunteers from across the Commonwealth and from across our country answered calls for help, making their way to Ground Zero and the Pentagon to begin the long process of combing through and clearing the wreckage. At the same time, our nation came together, bound by unity, a unity most of us hadn't seen in years, determined to do everything we could to look after the families who had lost a loved one and to ensure that a tragedy like this never happens again. When I think back to that day, I'm reminded of the deeply personal connection each of us has to the tragic events that transpired. For me, I think about a friend I lost from college who was just starting his career in finance in one of the towers at the World Trade Center. I think about my time as a young staffer in Congressman Marty Meehan's office, working around the clock for months to ensure that victims' loved ones received the survivor, health, and education benefits that they were owed. The work we started together then continues today. I was proud to cast my vote last year to extend the September 11th Victim Compensation Fund, which had been at risk for losing money. And I consider it an honor to remain in touch with a number of the same families that we were able to assist during their time of fear, uncertainty, and grief nearly 2 decades ago. I'll close by adding that I think one of the most important things that we can do today is share with future generations the stories of the heroes that we all know so well, those who persisted through unimaginable conditions to rescue as many people as they could. as well as the families who have bravely endured so much pain, but continue to honor the stories of their lost loved ones. I'll be talking to my own children, my 2 young daughters, why it's so important that we commemorate those brave men and women who wear a uniform and remind us of what it means to be an American. I'm so grateful to all of you for your commitment to doing the same. Thank you, stay safe, and God bless you all.
Thank you. And now, Representative Jim Arciero.
Thank you and good morning. Today marks the 19th anniversary of that fateful day in 2001 when events in New York City, Arlington, Virginia, and Shanksville, Pennsylvania would forever change the United States of America. That dark day, when nearly 3,000 Americans would perish in horrible and unthinkable ways, when buildings we thought would last for years would fall in hours, when the center of our military might, the Pentagon, would be struck, and when everyday passengers on an airplane would become American heroes. That fateful day led to nearly 2 decades of war in the Middle East, where thousands of brave American men and women who answered their nation's call to service sacrificed their lives, and thousands more have been left permanently injured, with physical and mental effects which will last their lifetime. Here at home in Westford, that day would impact us directly when we lose 2 of our very own citizens, Susan McKay and James Hayden, who were on Flight 11 and Flight 175 that crashed into the World Trade Center. Today, 19 years later, we remember and honor those courageous men and women who put themselves in harm's way, the brave police, firefighters, and first responders who sacrificed their own lives to help people that they never knew. September 11, 2001 is a day in the history of our nation that should never be forgotten. As the years pass, it may start to feel like a long time ago. But for those families of the victims left behind, their loss and pain have not receded. Never could they have thought on that particular September morning they would be seeing their father, their mother, their sister, their brother, their son, their daughter for the very last time. Never to have the chance to say a final goodbye or give a final embrace. With this solemn fact in mind, it is our responsibility to be mindful that no words of condolences or acts of remembrances can ever fully heal or erase the pain of their personal loss. Here in Westford and across our great nation, we will never forget the lives taken on that horrible day and the many who have passed from the health effects and trauma over the last 19 years. May God bless you and your families, all those precious souls who were lost on September 11th, 2001, and God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
Thank you. And lastly, we have our Select Board Chair, Andrea Peraner.
Good morning, everyone. 19 years ago, on September 10th, 246 people went to sleep planning to take a flight the next morning. 2,997 people went to sleep intent on going to work the next morning. 343 firefighters went to sleep prepared to start their morning shift the next day. 60 police officers went to sleep prepared to report for their morning patrol, and 8 paramedics went to sleep ready for work the next morning. None of them saw past 10 a.m. on September 11th. As has become our tradition here in Westford, we gather here today in remembrance of the more than 3,000 people who lost their lives on September 11th, including 2 of our own residents, Susan McKay and James Hayden. We gather today in honor, to honor the first responders who so courageously and selflessly rushed into burning buildings that day, to honor the dedication and commitment of the public safety officials who without hesitation bravely walked into a maelstrom of fire and terror. We gather here today in unity, united as a community in the memory of the exorbitant loss of life that day, united in our respect and recognition of the sacrifices made that day by so many, where on that day and on this day, politics, political parties, and political agendas had and have no place and do not matter, because on this day, we are united in our tribute. We gather today in gratitude for the rescue and recovery workers who in the days that followed toiled so long and so hard against all odds, searching for survivors. We gather today in compassion to recall the countless acts of kindness and compassion people showed one another, strangers helping one another, to acknowledge that today is now known as a day of service, a day to perform an act of kindness, to remind ourselves that an act of kindness, no matter how small, will impact the recipient far beyond the act itself, to remind ourselves that kindness is an antidote to hatred and anger. We gather here today so that we do not forget. We do not forget the lives that were lost. We do not forget the bravery that was seen that day. We do not forget the generosity of spirit that was shown to one another. We gather here today to remember that in the depths of despair, in the face of unfathomable destruction and devastation, we stood as one nation, strong, resilient, and defiant in our opposition and response to terrorism. On that day, and in the weeks that followed, we saw the best of humanity. Most recently, the Westford Fire Department received a gift of the Flag of Honor. The Flag of Honor is created from the names of all who died on 9/11. The blue and red stripes bear the names of lives lost that day. It will now hang in the Fletcher Fire Station for all to see. At the 9/11 Memorial in New York City, written on the wall are the words of the Latin poet Virgil: "No day shall erase you from the memory of time." As this flag now hangs at the Fletcher Fire Station and in countless other fire stations, police stations, and public safety buildings across our country, as we stand here today, we ensure that the names of those who lost their lives will not be lost and will live on in time. For the families who lost loved ones on September 11th, we are here today, and we will continue to be here in the coming years to ensure that the memory of your loved ones does not fade. For the first responders who so heroically responded that day, and to our public safety officials and first responders who continue to respond to the call, we are here today, and we will return year after year on this day to honor and to pay tribute to you all for all you do to keep us safe. Thank you one and all, and be safe.
Thank you. At this time, Firefighter David Cristiano will sound the alarm bell, the last call. I'd like to thank all of you for attending. This completes this morning's service. All public safety personnel may return to service.